So, hi everyone. I'm really glad to have you guys here to attend this presentation. As all of you know, I'm Gaius Ahamide. I'm from Georgia State University. I'm a PhD candidate, and I'm on the market on the 2022-2023 job market. So I'm an applied microeconomist. I'm interested in development economics, health, education, and econometrics. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a very sensitive and complex question, but I believe it deserves more attention from researchers and from economists to look into it to shape the policy discussion around this topic. So I'm going to talk to you about female genital cutting, going to talk to you about the determinant and also look at the effect on health and education. So why should we care about it? So this is the immigration and citizenship website, the US immigration and citizenship website. So as you can see, there is a zero tolerance declaration about female genital mutilation. And I was talking about this, and Dr. Mgemke told me that lately his mother was trying to enter the country, and they asked her to sign this declaration. So they give every people who come mostly around from countries where the practice is predominant to abide to that declaration, to say that they are not going to engage and to be part of mutilation or cutting when they are in the US. So as you might know, or you might not know, female genital cutting is a worldwide concern. Has been shown from this declaration from an official from the UNICEF, saying that when you look at the COVID situation, it has worsened education, health, and prospects for girls. And when you couple that with cutting, you can see how badly has impacted the prospects for those girls to have a better future. So more than 200 million girls and women have encountered FGC, and you can see prevalence rate that are high in countries like Egypt, India, the UAE, Colombia, Australia, Canada, and so many other countries that I'm not listing here. So every year, you can see that around 3 million girls will encounter FGC, and mostly before age 15. So in so many countries, prevalence rate is also above 80%. So what is actually female genital cutting? The WHO defined female genital cutting as a non-medical intervention which consists of the partial or total removal of the external female genitalia. And there are mainly 4 types of FGC. The first one is the partial or total removal of the clitoris. So the second type is the partial or total removal of the clitoris and the labia minora. And the third one is the most severe form of FGC, where the vaginal opening is narrow through the creation of a covering seal. And the last one is just all harmful practice to the female genitalia. So some research have mostly identified correlation between FGC and multiple health issues. We see many of those works has concentrate on some short-term consequences. You can see that they look at severe pain, excessive bleeding, shock, and death. And some others have tried to access the consequences on more long-term outcomes, such as childbirth complication, psychological problems, and also some studies have shown that women who experience FGC are more inclined to experience chronic mental and psychological problems. There is also the risk for those women to have extended labor that can cause fistula, and the outcome can be breath damage or death for the child. So as many can imagine, you could just say that FGC is just a problem it's just for developing countries, but that's not the case. For instance, in Britain, there is a law that has been enacted in 1985, and that law was not sufficient in countering the practice of FGC, because later down the road we have seen that people have started practicing what is called vacation or holidays mutilation, or holiday cutting, where they send the girls out of the country to encounter the practice. So another law was enacted in 2003 to kind of reinforce the effect of the first law. In 1997, there has been the first estimation or projection of the number of women who have experienced FGC. And this work by Jones and al. In 1997 found that 185,000 girls have encountered FGC at that time. And they used the 1990 census to make that prediction. And later on in 2012, that estimate has been updated, showing a 35% increase from the numbers that was provided in 1997. So as you can see, it's a global phenomenon, and in developing countries, in developed countries, is mostly from the increased number of immigrant population that are in those countries. So why are we concerned, or why should we be interested in this paper? What is this paper doing differently from what have been done in the literature? So my goal is to understand the transaction cost between the social welfare associated with FGC. So the idea here is to embed household behavior. It's to embed family behavior and mindset into the practice, and also to embed geographic and economic environment in the model, explaining why family got the girls. So this is what we are trying to do new here. I'm trying to embed that decision, because household, family, parents are the first stage of decision making when it comes to cutting. So I'm going to propose also a well-targeted policy against the persistence of FGC at the end of this paper. So how am I going to do this? I'm going to use a natural experiment, a law that has been enacted in 1999 in Senegal that affects the practice FGC. And then I'm going to use what I would call exposure, which means the law itself, the adoption of the law, and whatever a girl lives in a country where a law has been enacted. So I'm comparing Senegal and Mali here, and then that exposure will provide the natural experiment to access prevalence of cutting. And then from there, I'm going to have an extra step where I predict the probability of being cut. And then I'm going to use that probability to estimate the effect on health and education outcomes. And later on, I'm going to come back and talk to you guys about the factors that contribute to the demand of FGC. So give me a second. I'm just going to go through this, and then you guys can start giving your question, jumping in for your questions. So the first stage will make use of that natural experiment, and where I use a hazard analysis, because it involves a decision every year that a girl is at risk. Her household make the decision to cut her or not. And then in the second stage, I'm going to use the probability, and then to assess the effect on health and education. And then I'm going to look at different mechanisms: income shock, wealth, age, and area of residence. So previous findings, I found that the introduction of the law of the legal ban in 1989 has contributed to an 18% reduction in probability of being cut. I see that FGC increased the probability that a woman experienced either a pregnancy termination or delivery by C-section. And I also observed that FGC reduced by 23% the probability of attending school, and by 10% the number of years of school attendance. Okay, so guys, feel free to jump in if you have questions, and they will be so well appreciated.
So when you mentioned Senegal and Mali,
yeah,
I didn't get the point. Like, what's the role that Mali is playing here?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. So just to give you an overview, Senegal is the country where the law has been enacted. So I need a treatment and a control country, and I'm using Mali as a control country here to compare the two. So I'm going to use a difference in difference model where I have treatment and control and post and pre and post, and then I'm going to compare those differences. So Mali will be a counterfactual for Senegal if you want.
And why did you choose Mali? Why didn't you choose other
Yes,
countries?
I'm gonna come back to that. Just give me a second. I'm gonna provide you with why Mali can be the best, the most comparable country for Senegal.
I see.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to that down the road.
Guys, give me a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to follow up on question. So I think that is really surely that you say you are going to come back on that. But I mean, since you are introducing this topic, I think it will be very relevant, to people that are listening to you to understand. I mean, why are you choosing Senegal? Because, for example, there are many countries that we have such a look, right? Thinking about Niger, Guinea, and so on. But there are many countries where we see a huge prevalence of FDC. So
yeah.
Why are you not taking this country? What make Senegal the right context to
okay. I'm going to come back to that. This is just a preview. I'm just giving you guys like a glimpse, and this is where I'm like, at the end of my presentation, you should just leave the room because I gave you enough information. And that's how, I mean, sometimes when you present on the department, some professor cannot attend until the end. So this is just a preview of finding. So now I'm gonna dive into the real stuff, and I'm gonna tell you everything about why those two countries are the perfect fit. And I'm going to provide also evidence. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm going to provide like empirical evidence showing you why Senegal and Mali are comparable.
All right.
Thank you. So guys, thank you so much. Okay, so this is the roadmap. I'm going to give you a preview of research. I'm going to talk to you about what is the literature talking about when it comes to FGC. I'm going to talk to you about the rationality behind FGC. I'm going to talk about the data and the empirical strategy and some of the results and the mechanism, and I'm going to conclude. So for the previous of research, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but just keep in mind that there are three major strands of the literature trying to see FGC in general. So the first strand of the literature talks about the medical research on the health consequences of FGC. And basically, they look at different correlation studies, looking at different outcomes. So the first paper shows that look at, for instance, women's reproductivity, reproductive morbidity in the Gambia. They didn't see quite an effect there. The second study look at 6 other countries in Africa and look at obstetric outcome for women who had experienced female genital cutting. They see that FGC lead to 1 to 2 additional perinatal death per 100 births. And the last study that is pretty much most comprehensive, look at some health consequences on the economic aspect of the practice. They found no effect on BMI and no evidence that FGC causes infertility. So the second strand of the literature look at the factor that contribute to the persistence of FGC. And the first economic paper that really defined the rationality behind the why people practice FGC use a rational choice model where they argue that in fact those who are practicing FGC has a rationality behind, and those rationality has led so many people to come short to legal bans that will be really impactful. Because as an outsider, you might think that people who practice FGC are just irrational. But for them, there are so many transaction costs that makes them look rational on the mind. And us, we can think that they are less rational, but that's not the case. And that make it come short in terms of legal ban. So the next paper by Efferson in 2015 shows that FGC is not a social coordination game. So why are they saying that? They're saying that because they say that if it was a social coordination game, we should see in every community the two same level of prevalence of FGC. It's too high or it's too low. So when it's too high, it's like everybody in the community reach that level where they decide to abandon the practice. And they're like, okay, we are there. We're just going to stop. And when it's too low, it's just like, okay, I see my neighbor not practicing FGC. There is no need for me to practice FGC. So there is no need to engage. So they say because the model predict that no, we have seen differences based on so many other factors. It shows that there is not a social coordination game. So the next paper in 2015 by Bellemare found in West Africa that different variation at the individual household and village level explain the persistence of FGC. So they use one question in the DHS to see how many different characteristics vary or changes when it comes to FGC. And they also observe that and they make that conclusion. So the next paper by Novak 2020, she actually find a tipping point. So a tipping point is just a level in the community where everybody decide to abandon the practice. And she shows that, for instance, women who are well educated in those communities are the one that tips off the tipping point. So those women will in fact dictate the tipping point and make people to abandon the practice in those communities. So the last trend of the literature look at the impact of specific legislative changes on FGC. So there are mixed effects here. Some papers are like, yes, law can contribute to reduce the practice, but others are like, yes, law can have like perverse effects on changing behavior, since it's a behavioral aspect that might be linked to so many other things. It might just be difficult for people to ban or to stop practicing FGC. So what are the gap in the literature? What are the differences? So we see that there are in most of those papers, sample selection are a problem. And another aspect is this is a cultural question, right? So it involves so many behavioral aspects. So if you, for instance, if you embed so many different countries in the same sample, you might be capturing different behavioral aspects from those countries that we don't want to deal with because it is so deep into the culture aspects of those households. So we also see that detecting health complication might be hard, and some of those outcomes that different are measuring are not, as a matter of fact, going to lead us to a conclusion because of maybe small sample. And another problem I've seen so many times weak methodology, people just not accounting for so many confounders and social economic backgrounds that are linked to people to either the girls or the women that are being cut. So what is the goal of this paper? So this paper, we are trying to present more causally identify evidence on the health and education consequences of FGC. And to my knowledge, this is going to be a first paper that will really broaden the topic in those two aspects. So I'm considering a new source of decision level, namely parent decision about the girls based on the public information about FGC in the community. So I'm looking at, okay, if a girl has been cut, what are her parents looks like? What are the characteristics? And what is her community looks like around her for the decision to be made for her to be cut? So, and then I'm trying to identify a mechanism that lead to the decision to cut a girl and the role of legal reform in addressing and reshaping an individual's behavior. So why do people, as a matter of fact, practice FGC? What is the rationale, as you can say, of practicing FGC? Not for me to defend that, but just to give you a broader idea. So there are so many factors, and as you can see in bold on these slides, there are so many characteristics that lead people to practice FGC. So, for instance, ethnicity, education, or ages are leading cause or leading factors that brings people to practice FGC. This quote by this author, Kratz, in 1999, Dr. Mgenke don't like it, but it's a fact. It just shows that women is powerless, constrained by tradition, defined by men, unable to think clearly, and has only problem and need, not choices, which is not as a matter of fact true. And my study will even prove that even women are the one making the decision to cut the girls and not men per se. So there are other factors too. Some household or some parents, they value cultural, economic, and social benefit. So for them, it's like, what is the social benefit and the social cost of practicing FGC? And when they compare both, when the social cost is higher than the social, when the social benefit is higher than the social cost, they will just practice FGC. And another aspect is that people have that belief that cut girls are supposed or inclined to stay faithful in wedlock. So they have that mindset that is just defining the practice too. And sometimes there are what we call acculturation, where some ethnicity who move closer to other ethnicity who practice FGC tend to copy and tend to do exactly what they're doing, just to feel at home and just to be accepted by society. So other factors too that contributes to the practice are the fact that sometimes women, they want empowerment, they want the social position to be well seen, not only with regards to men, but also with regards to other women. And some women has even been called gatekeepers to the practice, because they have to be the one who make sure that the practice continue from generation to generation. So, and another key aspect is marriageability. So here's the fact: when a daughter is cut, she has a high value on the marriage market. So cut women are seen as a rare good on the marriage market, and then they have a high value because they will bring in more money for the family. They will bring more dowry for the family, or I think it's bride price. I'm always confusing those two, but it's the payment that the male family made to the woman. So a cut girl will bring more value, more money for her family compared to an uncut girl. So to enhance marriageability, FGM is one reason, or FGC is one reason. It's also an effective mechanism for the social control of women's sexuality. So those are kind of just a brief overview of the rationale behind the practice of FGC. So why are we focusing only on Senegal in this study? So Senegal gives us a really interesting shape of the data. So the data help us, since age is a key factor to define if a woman has been impacted by the law or not. We need to observe her age at cutting. So Senegal help us to really directly observe that. And another aspect is, like, we don't want to combine so many countries, because in so many people's idea, Africa is just one country, right? And it's like, okay, you are doing a study on the whole Africa, but this is a cultural and behavioral study. So we want to identify and isolate cultures and isolate people's belief. So focusing on one country will help us to really pinpoint the estimates. And also, we have few estimates in the literature, and we can compare estimates to those estimates and make a case about that. And why am I using Mali here as a control? So in 1960, actually, Mali and Senegal were one country. They were all both in the same empire. And as you can imagine, people believe, and when it comes to ethnicity, those things get carried away throughout time. And then I believe, and I'm assuming here, that when it comes to the practice of FGC, the way people in Mali and Senegal will react to the practice will be pretty much the same. And also, one thing is that those two countries have pretty much similar characteristics when it comes to the practice of FGC. For instance, they are highly Muslim, where we know that the practice is highly concentrated in those religion. Not to say that there is something linked to that in the Quran, but this is actually what is observed in the data. So in 1999, January 1999, Senegal approved a law to sanction those who provoke sexual mutilation or give instruction for the commission. So the law was enacted in January 29, 1999. And there is no doubt the law was widely known. Like a study in 2013 showed that the law was made known by so many people around the country using radio, using television, using other means to make it known to everybody around the country. And a few cases has been reported, and those cases were made public so that people are aware of the sanctions and the things that are going on. So the government conducted some high-profile arrests and conviction of FGC perpetrators, and the previous study also showed that the law was effective in community where the practice of FGC has been actively contested. Yeah.
I have a quick question or concern.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if I understand why you are saying that it will be challenging to to pull many countries to identify, for example, the impact of FGC on the outcome you are interested in. Mm-hmm. Because I know that you can always see the heterogeneity, right? Yeah. Because for example, me, I'm working on on one of my research on many countries, but I'm intending to see heterogeneity, across country, to explain the result that I'm getting. So I'm not sure if I understand. Because I can pull countries, but I still have a hand to see heterogeneity. I cannot at the end say that yes, because I see there is always heterogeneity in content. But I think that most of the time when sometimes people used to pull countries in order to have strong power and so on. Maybe I don't know if you can clarify a bit.
Okay, so the idea here is FGC is a behavioral a practice. It involves so many factors that are sometimes unobserved by researchers, right? So if you put in so many countries, you will be capturing things that maybe are not, you cannot guarantee that those things are pretty much the same throughout countries. So what do I want? I want my treatment and my control group to be not exactly the same, but very similar when it comes to the practice. So but if I pull in...
How do you know that Senegal and Mali are very similar?
Because I'm going to show you the evidence, the empirical evidence that they are similar. And the other things that I have, why I didn't use other countries, and this could be a project too. I could use other countries to put them in, but it's better to have like a clear demarcation of like a one country where I'm making the evidence of one country instead of just trying to have a whole bunch of stuff where I have the characteristics of the parents that varies from. I have so many, because it's good to look at heterogeneity, but I don't want so much heterogeneity in my difference in difference approach. I don't want so much heterogeneity going on explaining that from the beginning there is a huge difference already in my two control and treatment group.
I see.
And the data is like, I started this by using many countries, but I lose so many observation, and because of not being able to observe the exact age at cutting.
I see your point.
And having like enough people on both sides of the cutoff, like having girls after 1999 and before 1999, it's very, very was very challenging, and I was left with like few observations. And even sometimes for those observations, the outcome also have a lot of missing data. So I'm just gonna use, and I have a lot of info. I have a lot of data, and my methodology will also allow me to. You will see how my sample size will increase because I'm doing a hazard analysis here.
So, like, what I would say is that if you have a more rigorous way to justify those choices, that's the first thing you should talk about, because so far what you have been telling is like a story.
Yes.
And I can't rely on that to based on that, I won't even trust anything that you're going to show me.
Okay.
I think just go straight and show like rigorously, this is the method I use to find the country that's the best match to Senegal. And then based on that, the econometrics approach that you use, you can now put some add-ons and show that, okay, on top of what the econometrics tells me, these are other characteristics based on which we can see that these two countries are kind of similar. Otherwise,
Yes.
the story that you made about similarity, I can make the same about Gambia. Gambia was literally part of Senegal. But you didn't choose Gambia, you went ahead and chose Mali. And if we want to talk about that Malian empire, there are like many other countries that were part of that empire, but you didn't choose those countries. So it kind of looked like you kind of chose what will work for you based on so far what you've been telling. That's, you know, what I have in mind. Like you just chose what, if I get out of this presentation, I cannot tell someone like the rigor that you put into choosing those countries. I cannot say anything about it. So
Okay.
like from that, and then
that's it. That's a fair point. And I'm just telling you the story now, and I'm going to show you what the data shows and what the empirics shows. So this is just the stories to tell you why I'm choosing the country, but I'm going to go further and tell you why we can rely on the estimates here, looking at the for instance, the pre-trend, the event study results. So we're gonna see those things, and we're gonna talk about it when I go further down. So this is just a story. I'm telling you the story, and we're gonna go further down. Okay. So please, guys, bear with me, and then I'm gonna come back to that. So again, yes.
How much time would you have for your presentations?
What do you mean? Like
I don't know, for the
I have an hour and 30 minutes.
Okay, because I feel like you're giving so many details that are maybe not that necessary, especially when you were talking about the literature, you know, review and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can find a way to reduce.
Okay, I run this through my job talk presentation last time, and I did like an hour and 15 minutes, and it was, I mean, I was in time.
Okay, so, and also about what they are saying for the choice of your comparison group, because I have a similar topic, not on this practice, but mine was about cesarean section in Benin. Okay. So I have also to find another country in Africa to compare to Benin. And I chose one country, and the main comment was that was not the right way to do it. And they preferred me to kind of associate many other countries and take the averages of those estimates.
They want you to use a synthetic control method?
Yeah, something like that. Not a synthetic control, but just like putting many other countries together, you know, just and taking those averages, not the synthetic control itself. But you can also do something like synthetic control later. And what Patrice was saying, it will be more interesting. Sorry?
My name is Mahmoud.
So
his name is Mauna. So
sorry, Mauna. Yeah, it will be more interesting to see like a table where you show your treatment, your control, and how comparable those two are.
Yes, I have I'm gonna get to the data and show you that. So here's the thing. This is just like a paper that was wrote by Card, right? Of difference and reference, where they compare Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And they just look at wages for like workers in fast foods. So this is just a paper like that, looking at like two countries. They could have used so many other countries, but they use only Pennsylvania and New Jersey.
Yeah, and that was like the first paper.
Yes,
the first paper. So there have been a lot of improvements.
Yes, and I'm not saying no. And there are also so many other papers that just use like one only country. And here is, you have to keep in mind something. So if you pull in a sample of so many things, what we are trying to capture here is the process that brings somebody to make the decision, right? So if you pull in, for instance, so many other countries, you are going to capture so many other factors that are not the same for those countries.
But you can add some fixed effect, right?
The difference in difference is supposed to eliminate.
Could you allow me to flow? So there is 2 points. So when you are, for example, including country fixed effect, I think that in such a way you are capturing those differences that you don't want to see in that will bias in such a way your estimate. Second is that I think that why are you not using a within variation? Try to find a control group, in the country that you are working on. So
a within variation would just like, so for instance, if I use a within variation for looking at like high prevalence of FTC compared to low prevalence of FTC, or for instance, high region that traditionally practiced, I'm just going to be capturing a change in the size of the of FTC. And there is a paper in the literature doing that has been criticized about that. And I'm just going to be looking at, for instance, an heterogeneity in terms of regions, or for instance, like, okay, this there is like already a pre level of FGC for those regions. So, and I'm not going to be capturing a true difference for the prevalence for before and after the law was enacted.
Guys, the law was applied everywhere in Senegal at the same time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, everybody got the law at the same time.
Yeah, so if it's at the national level, I think what we are doing is
no, but I mean, no, I understand that, but I mean.
So I know that even if it's at the national level, you can still use some sort of yeah, but it's just
because you just need to find people that are maybe enough old when the policy were put in place in order to find your control group and see if they cut them or not, right?
Yeah, it could be, but
because most of the time people used to, I think that it will be great. Surely I will let you move forward. But most of the time, people used to, see the within variation. At the end, you can see also after putting another country, because, using another country, there is many people say, why are you saying yeah, and so on. So there will be a lot of debate on that. But I think that what you did is great. Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. So the research question that we are looking at the effect of the 1999 law. How has that affected the prevalence of FGC? We're going to look at how does female genital culling affect different health outcome, and I'm going to look at having a health card. I'm using having a health card as a proxy for hospital utilization. So those are the cards that you get when you go to the hospital, and they mark inside them, okay, you have been here. So it's just a proxy for hospital utilization. I'm going to look at pregnancy termination, C-section, and education. Education, I'm gonna you look at the intensive margin and the extensive margin. And lastly, I'm gonna focus on.
You are using the card for proxy for what here?
Hospital utilization. So it's
someone who has the card. You assume that that person
like use health services. Yeah, it's a proxy for
hospital services.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then lastly, I'm gonna.
And what does high health utilization mean?
It just means that maybe the person has had like a bad, an adverse health effect due to cutting, and they have to go many times to the hospital, or they just have to increase health utilization just to kind of I don't know, to solve some health issues that are. Oh yeah.
This is going to be a dummy variable or a continuous variable?
A dummy variable.
Okay, so those who lost their card are automatically accounted as people?
No, the survey is like the card is so I put in so there is 3 levels. You have the card, and I lost and the interviewer didn't see the card. I have the card, and I don't have the card. And so I put everybody who said I have the card into 1 and 0 for everybody who does not have it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
for clarification, like the card, was the card delivered only for the purpose of genital?
it's not. It's just.
So it's like anybody who has other health conditions could also have the card.
Yes, that's possible. But what I'm doing here, I'm just capturing the if my first stage is doing the best job at capturing the probability of being cut, so I can interpret my results as like, okay, being cut is associated of having like of increasing the probability of having a health card.
Yeah, so in the data, you do not see clearly who was cut or not.
I see who is cut.
So why are you computing the probability of being cut?
Because I'm using the problem-free component of what I call intensity, because I need a natural experiment to predict or to explain the variation in cutting. So here's the model. I'm using intensity, a difference in difference, where I use like pre and post, and country of origin as the intensity to define the causal effect of that law on the probability of being cut, or on the decision of being cut, if you want. And then from there, I'm going one more step to predict the probability of being cut, because this is a hazard model. I'm going to talk about it later. I'm defining a hazard model where every year the parents make the decision to cut or not the daughter, since the girl is at risk. So I'm age 0. I'm at risk of being cut. Was I cut at age 0? Yes or no? I was age 1. My parents are going to make the decision. Since I'm at risk of being cut, they're going to make the decision. Am I cut or not? Age, yes or no? Until you reach the actual age of being cut.
Gaius.
Yes.
The problem that I'm seeing here is that your dummy variable, whenever it is 1, includes people who have all kind of health issues, right? Then my question, and then you're saying that is the best you can do, right? So that's what I understood through what you explained, right? So my question is this. Like if you look at the statistics, right, what is the proportion of health issues related to genital cutting? Like, because if it is not, because I know many other disease health issues that may represent a huge proportion of your one. I mean, you're using a dummy variable, 1 or 0, right? So anybody who has problem, if you're using that card, and someone asked if you know people who are cut, if you know people who are cut, why not just use them and find another way? And then I'm afraid that your card thing here.
Yeah. Yes, I totally agree with Simply's comments, because at the end you are not going to only see the right impacts of FGM. It may be because I have maybe another issue. That's why I'm taking.
But here's the fact. If you say that,
yeah,
here's the fact. When you look at the impact of something on something else, there are so many other things. We do our best to control for so many other factors that could impact that outcome, right? We do our best, but as a researcher, we cannot guarantee that we are.
I agree. Yes, thank you. But what I want to say here is that having a health card, I think that will not be the great I mean, in my understanding, outcome to measure this. Me, what I will do is, for example, say if, for example, people that get cut, that were cut, if they are maybe more likely to do a, what can I say, a visit prenatal or postnatal. I don't know if you have such an outcome. This will be maybe more easy to see if they have access to all those things, or if they are more willing, to go to hospital if maybe they're pregnant or after. Because people, the idea here is that maybe when you get cut, you are less likely, for example, to go to school. So you don't, I mean, you are in culture and so on. So you don't have, you are not more willing to go to hospital and so on if you have such an issue.
I understand your questions and I understand your points. But what I'm saying, all of those outcomes that I'm looking at, as a researcher, I'm doing my best to isolate the effect of female genital cutting, right? So I can't say exclusively, like 100%, that I'm saying that it's only the effect of cut women. You see what I mean? Like, even if I look at education, the probability of being cut affect education, right? But there are so many other factors that affect also education. I'm going to try in my model to control for all those factors, like time trend, like policy that has been enacted around that period, many other stuffs. So if you say the same with, I mean, having healthcare card can be, I know it's like, it could be, it's not the best thing that I can do, but it's like the best that I can do with the data that I have.
Okay, guys, you can move on.
Yes, so I don't know if I have like a good amount of, I can look at prenatal visits and then and look at that too.
Yes, you have to.
Yes, I can look into that too. So and then I'm going to answer the question, what factor affected demand for FGC? So what did I'm going to use? Yes.
Yeah, one quick question. Is there an age limitation to that?
Exactly. And that's another factor that I use Senegal, because Senegal has a this particularity where you don't observe, like you observe cutting early in the days, like from 0 to 5. And then some cutting has happened 5 years old, and some cutting happened after that until age 14.
Okay.
But other countries have like really crazy practice where the cutting can also happen later on during and I'm gonna show you a distribution of cutting for Senegal and Mali later on down the road.
Okay.
So I'm using the DHS, you guys all know about that. They have like a module on FTC, and then I'm not gonna spend my time. So the next thing that I'm using that is like really interesting for this paper, I'm using the University of Delaware rainfall and earth temperature data. I'm using this data to capture income shock. So mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, you know that we rely on agriculture, and when there are no rain, drought is a condition that can affect the income for households. So when there is a drought season, it's like reduced income for households. So in the literature, it has been widely used. So I'm using drought as a measure of income shock. It's a proxy, you can say. So I'm going to use that data from 1950 to 2017. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use that range. I'm going to fit a gamma distribution to that range to have a whole range of rainfall realization. Yeah. And then I'm going to go into each grid.
How much of Senegalese households are in the agricultural kind of activity?
I can give you
I bet that people you got in your sample here, the way you say the thing is intensive, really intense in Senegal. You have people, household from all type of activities. So if you're using the drought, I'm not sure how, I mean, the sector that drought affects directly is agriculture, right?
Not only.
And yeah, it can affect maybe the prices, it could affect, but because but we know our countries, we are import heavy countries, so local productions, even if when it is variation in local production does not really play big role in price variation in our countries.
Drought does not only affect agriculture, it affects roads, it affects transportation, and transportation become expensive. It affects even those imports that you're talking about. If you want to send them to
drought, the effect of drought on road is minimalistic. That is
you have
nothing.
evidence.
No, I mean, in the short term, yeah. In the short term, sure.
Yes.
You see, like we won't say that, okay, let's say that there is a drought in Benin, right?
Mm-hmm.
We won't say because of that, the rice we've been importing from outside through seas, like you will not say because of there is a drought and then our gudron disappeared.
Yes, but so please,
yeah.
I think that I really support, Gaius' argument, because drought could be an income shock. So let's suppose that, in Senegal, most of the households are relying on agriculture.
That's what I'm asking him. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
You have
yes. So here's the.
Instead of just assuming it, if you have a statistic,
you are right.
That you show it, right? Yeah.
So,
guys.
Yes.
Sorry. So I'm trying to understand why you are thinking about the income shock, and the question that comes in my mind is, are you looking at the income shock in those households in the year they cut their girls as like a substitute for that loss in income in the year they cut, or in general?
In the year they cut. So
okay.
How this is how I construct the drought in this. I'm not even done. So this is how I construct it. I look at the long range of distributions to have, like, I'm just following the literature. I look at the long range of distributions, and then I fit a gamma distribution to that, and then I merge the drought data, the rainfall data to the DHS data, and it matches by grade. And then in each grade for every year, I look at the rainfall realization. And if the rainfall realization is below 15 percentile, I characterize that year for that grade, there have been a drought event. And this is widely used in the literature because 15 percentile is used because most West African country grows maize, and any rainfall realization below 15 percentile is a drought characterization. So for those, I when I see a distribution that is below 15 percentile, that variable takes value 1, saying that grade in that year has experienced drought.
Oh, to follow up on that question, so if you observe a drought in, let's say, a grade, right? Someone, Caroline, asked the question if you're going to assume that female genital cutting in the household made up that gap or something.
So here's the thing: when there is drought, there is loss in income, right? Yes. So a family lost income, so they trying to find a way to compensate that loss of income. Okay. And we see that through marriage mechanism, cutting represent a way for parents to make up income. They have that expectation of making up income.
Oh, but you said most of the cutting are between 0 and 5.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how, if I'm cutting my daughter who is.
So when there is drought, parents are more hopeful, expectation for the future that, okay, and that, okay, if there is drought this year, I'm going to make up my lost income. I'm going to think about a way to compensate my loss in income. And I'm going to cut my daughter with the expectation to marry her. And, there have been, I'm doing I just say that cutting happens until age 5, but I'm using the sample of girls from 0 to 14 to do the study. And then also cutting has also been associated with a lot of child marriage in this cases. So for many of those girls, when they are drought, parents are like, okay, I have this daughter here that could represent a compensation in terms of income loss for me, and then I can kind of cut her with the expectation of just make it up for that loss in future years or later on.
Then what you're saying is like, I don't know, like it seems like, okay, because the way you explained it, it seems like, okay, I have an income gap. I cut my daughter, I cut her and then bring it to the market and sell it to make it the gap of the
don't think it.
What I'm saying is that look, then here now there is a long-term decision-making process in this game here, right? Like,
yes.
And maybe I don't have the best way, or I don't have better way to that you put it, but maybe you have to rethink again how you are connecting the drought as motivation to cut if a child, if the child marriage in that market that you're using, which is Senegal, if the child marriage is not, you have to talk also about the percentage of child marriage that you got there, right? Otherwise, I don't know, the whole thing is a little bit loose. It's not really convincing as you wish. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, anyway, think about it. Not to drag you down, but keep going and think about it.
Guys, sorry. So my comment will go in the same direction as Simply's comment, because especially in Senegal, households are more likely to cut girl between 0 and 5, right?
No, don't forget about that. It's because I'm saying that you guys are focused on that. No, I have a whole distribution from cutting from 0 to 15.
Yeah.
I said that cutting happens mostly around that age, but that doesn't mean that there is not a huge amount of gut.
Go ahead and show the distribution and let's see something.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead and show the distribution.
Okay. So I'm not saying that, I'm saying that cutting happens for most girls around that age. But that doesn't mean that there are no cutting happens after that age. And another thing is, child marriage is a thing when it comes to cutting. So some parents marry the daughter very young.
Like what age?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't.
That's,
but
you have.
Those are very important thing that you need to use to justify what you're saying. Because if most cutting happen around 5 and most child marriage happen around 14 or 15, then there is like 8 to 9 years gap. And how would you justify that? Because there's out today, I'm taking a decision for which the realization will happen in 9 to 10 years. Because we can think the way you are thinking and say that, okay, there's a drought today, in 9 or 8 years, I'm sure that there won't be no drought. So it's not worth it cutting my daughter.
So think about it too. Drought has long-lasting effects. Drought, I have a paper with Dr. Mgemker, and we also look at the effect of drought on child mortality. Drought has long-lasting effects. And agriculturists, they know that. They have that information. So that information can motivate, for instance, a parent or a household to not be like, okay, it's going to be better in 2 years. And some droughts can last many years.
Yeah, but then if it's because it lasts many years, then the first explanation that you gave is not what is really driving parents to take the decision. They are taking the decision because they observe that there's a change in the there's a climate change. And what they usually get from agriculture, they are not going to get that anymore. And
but
that's a totally different story.
No, that's an income shock. That's what I mean by income shock.
Yeah, but what you were talking about is like a one-time shock is different from a persistent shock.
Exactly. That's all is all day, right?
So what I'm saying is, okay, when there is drought, parents decide to, I mean, I'm going ahead of the results, but that's what we're gonna see. Like when there is a drought, parents make a decision to either make up for that loss or not, with the expectation that that girl will have a high value on the marriage market, because they know that a cut girl will bring more money to compensate. And when there is drought is a long-lasting event. So a drought that happened today could have an impact in 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years when it comes to agricultural products. So I'm not saying that, okay, I'm looking at like
it's kind of justified it, but keep thinking about it anyway.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. So that's how I use the drought data. So I'm looking at so I'm just going to show you some statistics for cut and uncut girls. So we see how they are distributed across religions, across area of residence, mother's age, if the mother has been cut or not, marriage, the husband's or the partner's age. So those are some of the distribution for those two samples. I'm going to show you also the distributions among treatment and control, either meaning Senegal and Mali. So you can see also the girl's age.
The way you present your distribution, that really, do you have this separate?
What do you mean separate?
Do you have, me, I was.
So I have cut and Kurt and all the samples. I mean, everybody together.
Example, you mean only in Senegal?
No. So the first table is cut and uncut girl in both countries.
Okay.
And all the samples, it's like the sample of cut and uncut girl.
Okay,
these are the statistics that we wanted to see very early on to be able to understand the comparison. Yeah, but it would be also great if you can put both, I mean, the treatment and control side by side.
That's
okay.
In the next table. Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. There was I mean, kind of seeing the full distribution of each one of these things.
Yes.
Like, or at least the mean, the max, because you're showing only the average here.
Yes, that's, I don't know. That's, I mean, okay, I can show you the mean, the max, and the everything, but yeah.
Anyway, think about.
No, but I mean, sorry. I think that since he put the standard deviation, this is for me sufficient, right?
In print, okay.
Because in such a way, he give at least, how the mean vary across the distribution. I think that some standard deviation could do the job, I think.
So what do we want to say is to look at the average girls in every context, right? We want to see how the average girls looks like and how far is she from the other girls that are in the samples. And that's what it's just a way to, I can do this in so many other ways, but it's just the most compact way to have it, like, for everybody to follow through on this.
What should we understand from the girl's age information that you have there?
So you see that they are cut around I mean, so this is the girl's age at the time of the survey. It's not the age at cutting, it's the age around the time of the survey. So some of the girls around 5 years old or 6 years old, when you look at uncut girls, they're highly Muslim. They mostly lives in rural areas.
Sorry, Gaius. Horace, what I was saying by saying it would be great to present the mean and the max. it will avoid questions like, what is the range of age? What do you mean by a girl here? Like, is it
I see.
between 0 and 10? Is it 0 between, what is the, if you presented the mean and the max, we know that when you say girl, because you cannot call someone 50 years old a girl, right?
Yes, simply. So I'm saying since the beginning that I'm concentrated on girls 0 through 14. And what I'm doing here is just to show you a brief distributions of the girls.
Guys,
to show you
the question I'm asking.
Yeah.
Please don't take it as if I'm offending you.
I'm not saying that you're offending.
When you are in a seminar, you are not going to tell them. I was saying from the beginning. No.
I will.
No.
I heard
if you said that, look, people advise me against that many times. If you go to a job talk and you say that, almost like many people will write you off automatically. Like they'll take it like personal and offensive.
You always say this
what
is
I want is like, that's what I would say. Like, if you put in the table, right? If it is in the table, people see it. Even if you've been talking about it, you will say that we are maybe the person is stupid or maybe I'm stupid. But that's not the case.
I will do that. I will do that. Thank you. That was a great point. You make a great point.
The next table.
Guys, just put a note under.
Yes.
That's and move on. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a note. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm missing that.
For instance, what is between parentheses?
Yes, thank you. I forgot to put the note for this table. All my other table has like giant notes. I forgot to put the note for this one. I'm sorry for that. But I will take that in account. I have to put the note. Thank you.
Please move to the next table.
So
yeah.
And in the next table, we have the distribution for Senegal and Mali. We see there's a lot more cutting in Mali, for instance, showing that maybe because there is no law that was enacted, justifying. So some of the characteristics we see: highly Muslim, mostly living in rural areas. We see the mother's age are pretty much similar. It's not the same, but it's pretty much similar. We see the marriage status.
What do you mean and say there are a lot more cutting in Mali? Is that
is girl cut? It's 73% compared to 23% in Senegal. That's what I mean by that.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing now. Okay, it's okay.
But Gaius, there is something that you haven't been pointing out from these two tables.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at the first table and also the second table, we see that there is a mother to daughter relationship.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So that is why I need mother fixed effect. I need to control for stuff like that. So this table just shows you why or what sort of controls I need to put in my regression to make sure that I'm going to pinpoint other stuff that might just impact the decision to cut.
Did you perform any t-tests on the differences between the two groups?
Yeah, that's probably different. I mean, the two groups are not. My goal is not to have like similar groups. You see what I mean? I'm not trying to have like exactly similar groups.
Yeah.
Because if I have a similar group, I just do an OLS. I just do like a simple regression. I just take the difference and that's my estimates, right? It's not, I'm not expecting to have like everything should be the same numbers or close, right?
Okay, yeah. I'm saying that because in the beginning, you're trying to justify how Mali was very comparable.
Yes, but that is not, when I say Mali is comparable, don't look at the statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We are going to look at, for instance, time trend. I mean, this is the distribution of age at cutting, which is important because
you see this distribution. That's what I was. One thing that
I'm looking at the distribution of cutting. I see that a lot of cutting is happening early ages, and then some are happening later on. And then boom, here's the trend. One of the things that we're interested in the two countries, we're looking at the trend before and after the law, and mostly the pre-trend for Senegal and Mali. And as you can observe, what do we want? What is the assumption of the difference in difference? We want to see a visual parallel trend. before the enactment of the law. And that's only what we need, right? And as you can see, before 1999, the trends tend to follow similar path, showing that we can argue that there are similarities from the data in the two countries.
The trends are still the same?
The trend, I'm sorry?
Even after 1999.
After 1999, you will see that there is a small gap here between Senegal. You see that there is a small jump around just after 1999.
Which one is Senegal? Which one is Mali?
I'm sorry, I made a mistake again. Senegal is the one that is below and Mali is the one that is above.
Okay, so there is a drop?
There is a drop right after the enactment of the law in Senegal.
One thing that you can also do with the trend is to show the 95% confidence interval.
Yes, I'm gonna do the event study later on. You will see.
Yeah,
so yes, I'm
your trend here. I'm sorry that we keep punching you everywhere. Your trend here, I don't know about others, but me, I'm not convinced that after the 1999 that there is any change in anything here. I
think the most important thing about
it's before the 1999.
Because you want to use
and show us only the before.
Okay.
What is important is before, because if someone said this after trend that you put here, like after 1999, they are going to focus on it and say, okay, whatever you show us later.
That's an excellent point, Simplice. But so what we want, the assumption that we want to use for difference in difference is to look at the trend before the enactment of the law. So please, let's focus on 1990 to 1999, which is like the period before the dash line.
Yeah, then I because you presenting for the purpose of making this better, and avoid a lot of questions.
Okay.
So please, for next presentation, focus only on the before.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm going fast because I feel like you guys have probably, and then I'm just spending so much time on stuff. So I'm at this.
Don't worry about the time.
Okay.
We can give you 3 hours.
So let's move on to the empirical strategy that I'm using to do this. So to do this, we are looking at the effect of being cut on our different outcomes. So this should be equation 1 that we are trying to estimate, right? In a simple term, but I could not estimate that because I have endogeneity from what? An observable. It's a behavioral aspect. So there are many factors that I can observe and that I need to find a sort of an instrument to go around that to look at the effect. So that is why I have FGC hat here. Is going to be a predicted probability of being cut that I will compute from a hazard analysis. So how do I do that? So I need a first stage where I define a model that will incorporate the event of cutting. And then I will use a sequential conditional probability function, which build on a discrete approximation of the density function of the prevalence of cutting for a girl based on those exogenous explanatory variables. So what am I doing? I think I'm just gonna, okay. So I need a hazard of being cut over time, and then the heterogeneous impact at different edges. And then here, I need to define the duration of interest. It's the first time a girl is at the risk of being cut until she's cut. So it's when she was born, because cutting can happen until right after you were born. So from 0, and I'm gonna limit my sample to 14. What is interesting here is like you can go further 14 if you have like all those characteristics that I'm talking about for those women. But I'm using only 14 just to capture the characteristics. So I have my duration and interest. First time a girl is at risk of being cut until she was cut, which is 0, age 0 through 14 in our case here. So I'm gonna make some few definitions. I'm gonna define HAI is the waiting time until girl I is cut, and this can take any value from 0 to infinity. But I'm just gonna stay at 14 in my case here, but you can go beyond that. That's what I'm saying basically here. So I'm gonna use mothers and fathers characteristics that include birth cohort, education, religion, ethnicity, and then I'm going to use also geographic and economic information for each girl in my sample. So I use birth cohort for those girls as defined as CI is equal to YI minus her age. So, and then what I do here is I transform my data into a person year panel. So if a girl is cut at age A, she will contribute age A plus 1 to the panel. So a simple example, I observed a girl, she was maybe 11 years old when I did my survey, right? She was cut at age 5. So I will replicate her observation in my sample 6 times. So meaning 0, she was at risk of cut. I'm going to observe if she was cut or not. 1, she was at risk of cut. She was cut or not until age 5 when she was cut. So she will contribute 6 times to my sample. And after that, she's dropped.
So your sample is only about girls who are cut.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No. I have a cut and then cut girl.
So what happened to a girl who is 14 years old and who had never done the procedure?
She will stay 0 until she will just have 0 in the sample because I haven't observed that. And you can call that a censoring mechanism if you want, but
so that girl will be dropped or she will be repeated 14 times.
No, she won't be repeated because she has never been cut. So I'm repeating age at cutting.
Okay.
So if you have never been cut, you will stay 0 until, 1 time in the sample.
Okay.
But if you are cut at age 5, you will be repeated 6 times in the sample.
Okay.
It's a standard hazard analysis that I'm doing here. So, so the hazard of being cut at age 0 through 14 is just those factors that I talked about. And how am I finding the probability of being cut? So it means that if you were cut at age 5, it means that you survive 5 periods before you were cut at age 5, right? So I'm going to use the probability of surviving all those periods times the probability of being cut at that exact same age. You get what I mean? So I have a girl at age 5. It means that she survived age 0, age 1, age 2, age 3, age 4, and she was cut at age 5. So I'm going to use her survival probability, which is 1 minus the hazard that I'm computing times, to the power 4 times the hazard for being cut at age 5.
Where is the rainfall, the income shock we were talking
coming later. It's coming later. It's not here yet, but it's coming later. Okay. So we see the how I obtained the first stage. So I'm gonna translate that model into a logistic regression. So I'm just gonna use a logistic to maximize those likelihoods. So what I'm just doing, I'm just looking at the likelihood of every girl in my sample. And then I'm going to compute the likelihood for all those girls, and I'm going to maximize the likelihood to obtain my probability of being cut, or the baseline, not the probability, the baseline hazard of being cut. We get that? Okay. So I'm just going to approach that using this model, model 3, which is just a standard difference in difference, but with those features, the hazard analysis into it. So post-time Senegal will measure the exposure by considering the date of birth and the country of origin for the girl. So beta 1 will just measure the baseline difference between Senegal and Mali, and then beta 2 will measure the hazard of being cut after the adoption of the law in Senegal, controlling for so many other things like pre-enactment difference, other changes that occur around that adoption year, and so many confounding factors. And then I'm going to show you also another things that shows why Senegal and Mali can be comparable through an event study. So an event study is just to plot the coefficient before and after the enactment of the law, and I'm going to look at the significance of those coefficients and how close are they to 0. And then I'm gonna use that hazard that I compute to predict the probability, and then to use that probability to estimate equation 1 and then to obtain alpha 1. So the first result is basically the event study of the FGC prevalence, where I'm just estimating equation 4 here, and then simple conclusion from this regression, we see that before the enactment of the law, all my coefficients are really close to 0, and they are statistically insignificant. So meaning that they are basically 0 before the enactment of the law, showing that the two groups are comparable and then can be used to access the effect of the law after the adoption in Senegal. And then after the law was enacted, you see a drop that happens for a few years. We see a small jump, and then after it comes back down and it stays down throughout the years. So I'm going to summarize that result in the next table. And this table...
Guys, please, could you go back to your previous? Yeah. So why, for example, the confidence interval is too high?
Yeah, because, you know, I penalize myself by adding some crazy interaction, and I lose a lot of observation sometimes because I'm trying to capture a trend. I'm trying to penalize myself to fail the parallel trend, to capture so many trends. So I did a lot of interactions that are making me just lose a bunch of informations that makes the... I have other event study graph that shows like confidence intervals that are really low, but I feel like this one, I'd rather present this one to penalize myself, to show that, okay, I'm making sure that I'm not picking up something before the adoption.
Yeah, but I mean, since the confidence level is too high, this means that, you know, the estimate is not, you know, accurate, right?
But look at the coefficients before; they are close to 0.
Guys.
Yeah.
How would you interpret the drop in the prevalence by 1, for example, in this graph?
The prevalence by 1?
Yeah,
no.
Because after 1999, we noticed a drop.
Yes. So what you can say there, it's after the law was enacted in Senegal, the prevalence has decreased by 0.5 0.05 in 2000. So for each year, so what I'm doing here is like, you know what, here I'm looking at I'm estimating the effect, the coefficient for every year in my sample.
Yeah, she's asking you like,
I know my question is,
what does it mean?
Yeah, I was thinking about prevalence, like something like the probability of...
Yes, I will summarize. So this result, it's like a general result, but I'm going to summarize that in tables.
I mean, I was expecting the range of the coefficient here to be within 1. And so I'm surprised that we have 2, like minus.
Oh, I see.
That's
because the logistic, it's a logistic model.
Oh, okay.
Logistic model have those ranges that are...
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So do you want to mean that we should not look at the estimate? What do you want to mean by that? Do you want to mean that, for example, yes, if we take, for example, in 2010, I mean, how are we going to interpret, for example, this estimate? How are we going to interpret it?
So you cannot make a clear interpretation of this result. This estimate is mainly to look at the pre-period, and then you see how the coefficient changes around time. But I'm going to summarize this one in a table to give you one coefficient to tell you, okay, the law has decreased FGM prevalence by this percentage point, meaning that we observe.
Okay.
So I'm going to summarize this result that we see here in this table. So
also, guys, in the previous slide, you should make sure, because you put some notes and it's
it's I put it on 1. I made this. I thank you for that point. make sure that they can read it, right?
Yeah, I think you can use a resize box.
Yes, I can. Yeah, I just use like one. I can decrease the yeah. Thank you. So yeah, I'm
one
gonna.
question, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So on this table.
Yes.
So you said you have done a logistic regression, right?
Yeah.
So these coefficients, are they the odd ratio or the coefficient themselves?
It's the coefficient themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I have a hard time. I have a hard time to report the odd ratio in this case, but maybe I can think about it and a way to do that.
Yeah, it will be good to report the marginal effect.
Yes.
There's a way to calculate the marginal effect instead of just putting the coefficients.
Yes, and I have the marginal effect in this table right here, but I see your point. It makes totally sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So in the next table, I'm reporting the marginal effect of the impact of the law. So the first row just will show you the baseline difference between Senegal and Mali. And the second row will just show you the effects in Senegal after the adoption of the law. So
yeah, Gaius.
Yes.
I don't know. No, go to the show the result.
No, you have a question.
I mean, I noticed that from the beginning you're using that kind of fancy way of showing things, showing one part and then showing the other part. I think, do you think that it's kind of, I don't know how others think about it, but what I receive as advice for it is that it can be distracting. Why not just show the table and then talk about it instead of going all this?
It's just.
That's true. That's correct, because there are many people who are not listening to you, but who want to read the results. So it's better to have them than
like what I want.
Them.
Exactly.
It's just hard. Like in my department, that's what we are counseled to do. Like, because a table can have so many informations, and you probably don't talk about everything on the table. You talk about, like, I'm just mainly going to talk about that line. But I see your points. But I'm just going
to think it's depend on how much time he has, like pressingness and all this. Yeah.
Because
I don't think if he has like 30 minutes to present this.
Then please shut up.
Okay. So okay, I see your points. Okay, now I'm lost. Okay. So I'm just going to talk to you about the first model in column 1, because that's the most restrictive model, where I added like year fixed effect, region fixed effect, survey year fixed effect, and also to tell you that our model accounts for region and time trend. So I have the interaction between region and time trend in our model here. So as we can see, the law has contributed to a decrease of the prevalence of cutting by 12.4 percentage points. And this represents around a 20% from the baseline. I think it's 20 or 28% from the baseline, showing that, yeah.
Do you control for mother's status being,
yes. Yes, I have all I have the controls here. The control variable are girls' dummy, family background, such as religion. I have also marital status. I have the husband's age. I have so many controls in the.
One of the control is mother having FGC or not.
Okay, I see. Okay.
For that.
Yes.
Okay, so one thing is that you can put also make it clear in the table, like where the line where you put main, year, fixed effect, region, and then you put control. Yes. Those are nothing but it to like people.
Okay. Okay.
But it will also make the table too big.
Okay.
One line per
line is not too big, no, right?
Okay, I see your points. Okay, thank you. Okay, so Now, what is the meaning of those probabilities?
No, show the second line.
I mean, the second line is just the difference between Senegal and Mali before the adoption of the law. Yes, the
adoption of the law is like there was less cutting. The result was kind of
the less cutting in Senegal compared to Mali. Yes.
Yeah, but that's that.
What?
So what you are showing here is like there was already a larger gap between Senegal and Mali in terms of the cutting, even before the policy was implemented. So
when you do with a difference in difference, you look at before and after control and treatment, right?
Yeah.
So you take the difference between the two. So I'm showing you, Senegal is just showing you the difference between cutting in Mali and cutting in Senegal. So there is a lot more cut. I think I mentioned when I was presenting the summary statistics that there were a lot more cutting happening in Mali compared to Senegal. When you look at the summary statistics.
I mean, the ideal thing here, right? I mean, what would really save your ass here is that that coefficient that you have in front of Senegal are not statistically significant. They may be negative, but there won't be any different from the effects, to interpret. What we are seeing here, and I bet people are going to jump on your neck for that, is that there was a statistically significant decrease in the genital cutting in Senegal compared to Mali before even the policy.
No, it's not before. In Senegal and Mali, that's like the difference between the two countries.
The whole sample.
Even
I'm sorry?
it's
not a difference in difference. It's a simple difference.
It's not a difference in difference, simply. It's just Mali, Senegal. What is the difference between the countries?
Yes, so I think that, no, I mean, having a statistical difference in Senegal is not a problem, right? Because actually he's not doing an OLS. He's using a different difference to estimate the causal impacts of the reform.
So simply, what is the meaning of that coefficient? It's like when I look at Mali.
Like if we had to interpret it, let's say the simple way that I used to interpret it is that replace the post by 1 and add up the two coefficients, right? And if you are lucky enough, they have the same level of statistic significance, then as it is in your case, then we can literally add them up and see the overall.
So the effect is Senegal is equal to 1 and post is equal to 1. So think about a simple difference in difference model. So we take treatment control in parentheses minus control post, pre and post. That's the coefficient that we use for the difference in difference.
That's the second line.
That's the second line.
No. In difference, the coefficient that is most interesting, I mean, I know that we want to compute the overall effects of something, but the coefficient that we really focus on is the interaction term, right?
Yes.
That's what he put on the second line.
It is the second line. But okay, anyway, move ahead. Go ahead.
So what I am noticing from this table, comparing the two lines, is just that there are a lot of things going on impacting the decrease in the cutting, because using the simple difference, you even notice a larger drop than the effect of the policy itself using the pre and post. So
no, but
that there are many other factors that are impacting the genital cutting in Senegal.
Yes. So here, one thing, the coefficient that is associated with Senegal is just showing you a baseline difference between Senegal and Mali at any point in time. It's not before or after. It's like when you take Mali and when you take Senegal and you make the difference between the two throughout the whole period, that's what you get. But now the second coefficient is telling you, when I take Senegal and I take after the adoption of the law, this is what I see. This is how the law has impacted the cutting of female genital cutting. Holding all the controls equals, right? Holding all the characteristics that are included in the model. Simplice, do you agree? Do you see it?
Yeah, it's yeah, you can move on.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes. Did you take into account the trends?
Yes.
In the implementation of the policy? Because I think those type of policy, I mean, this policy was not effective in all the region of Senegal. So maybe there were some region where the policy were more effective than others.
I'm sorry, I don't get what you mean by effective, but
like let's say that we decide that, okay, by today, I mean, the government imposed that policy of cutting.
Yes.
You know that there are some regions where this will be effective more than others.
Okay, you mean there are some regions that will see a
huge gap, a huge change.
The impact of those regions will happen faster than other regions. And I did that by controlling for year fixed effect. And I added also an interaction of region and time trend effect, fixed effect.
Yes, guys, I think that it is the interaction between region and time.
Yes,
but not the year.
Yes.
Because the reason why I'm saying this is because you could have thought of two control. So some control within Senegal.
Yes.
And then the control that you are using now. I mean, the people in Mali. But now in Senegal, you have some control which captures those people in the regions where the policy took time to arrive, if I can say it that way. Like basically you have two type of control variable. Because I know this type of papers, they have done it this way. Maybe you control it with the interaction that you mentioned. But then having two type of control, one within Senegal, and then the one that you are using now.
Since I'm including region time trend, I think that is capturing that specific effect, saying that, okay, there are some differences maybe between regions. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, I'm not questioning the program. It's correct. Like I think you control for that, but I'm just thinking of maybe another type of analysis where you have two type of control variable.
Okay.
One control within Senegal and then the Mali.
Okay.
And then you see how the effect. I mean, you compare the magnitude of the effect between these two controls across the two controls.
Yes, the within Senegal effect is just going to be weird in all cases because regions will just start at different levels. And I mean, there has been a paper in the literature doing exactly that, but I just have a hard time that they're just capturing differences that is already there, like maybe regions that are in rural areas compared to urban areas.
Okay.
I mean, but I see the point that you're making, and maybe you can talk about it later.
All right.
Yeah. Wilfred, are you talking about something like a staggered difference in differences in the cases where the implementation is not effective at the same time in all regions?
Yes.
But for that, you need to have a different
because the policy was implemented at
one
national
time.
level at one time. So it's
but
not
the thing
like
is
it started in the north and then it was expanded later in the other areas.
So if you talk about a staggered,
yes.
If you talk about a staggered difference, you need different time of implementation. You need.
Yeah, I think that's what he's referring to.
Okay.
A different
Anyways,
time of
you can move on.
We can discuss that.
Yeah, we can talk about it later. So what is the meaning of that probability that we just see? Using the way to compute the probability of being cut. I mean, what is the meaning of the baseline hazard that I find in this table? So let's say that I take a girl that is 10 years old, that was cut at age 2. Her mother is probably 29 years old. She's from the predominant religion. She's from the ethnicity Pula, and she lives in a rural area of Senegal. So her baseline hazard, it's 0.099. And then using the method that I talked about earlier, her probability of being cut is 0.19. Let's compare another girl who is 10 years old, has pretty much the same characteristic, but maybe from a different ethnicity that is like maybe more inclined to practice FGC. You see a big change in her probability of being cut from 0.19 to 0.45. Let's take another girl. You see also her mother is 30 years old. She's from the rural area, and her probability increased drastically. So a pattern that you can see here, you see that as we predicted, like ethnicity will make a big differences. For instance, mother's age, mothers who are older will also are inclined to cut the girls compared to more how do you call those more new generation or more progressive women will be inclined to cut the daughters. So let's look at some second stage results. So I'm going to present the naive OLS result and the two SLS where I use like the predicted probability here. So as you can see, for using a health card, when you look at model in column 4, it shows that being cut increased the probability of having a health card by 1.37 percentage points. When we look at the next table for the probability of having a C-section, we see that being cut in no, this is the weight at birth. I looked also at weight at birth, but I couldn't observe anything happening for weight at birth here. Just telling me that there are many other factors that characterize the weight of a person throughout time. So maybe that is why I'm not able to capture something going on here.
Weight at birth, are you using the weight at birth of someone who has a card or something?
Someone who is cut.
Someone who is cut, right?
Yes.
But you're saying,
not weight at birth, the weight. I don't know why I'm saying weight at birth. The weight of someone who is cut.
Okay.
The weight at the survey.
Because you're saying weight at birth.
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know why I have done some work on weight at birth and then that's just kept in my head. So it's the weight of a woman at the time of the survey. Because weight at birth won't make sense here. Like, what are you telling me? Right. So you see that
we're also talking about C-section and all this. So it could be the weight at birth for those who give birth by cesarean section.
Yeah, it could be too. It could be. That's true. Yeah, but it's not of interest here, right?
I don't know if you saw the comment of Mauna in the chat, but
I didn't see it. I can't see the chat. I don't know why.
Just click on the chat.
It's not showing up.
You're saying to include the FGC of the mother as a control, which is
yes. I'm gonna do that.
Do you have some control of model fix? Do you have some control on some model characteristics?
Yes, I do. But you know what? I'm gonna tell you the truth. I didn't add mother fixed effect. I just had that comment last time when I presented. Since I'm pulling up like many girls from one mother, I should also add like, so my idea was
my worry is that if you have one daughter, one mother in your sample, and you include mother fixed effect, you are going to lose a lot of observations.
Yes.
So what I suggest is that, because one reason why mother fixed effect would be interesting would be what Mauna suggested, the FGC, right? If you control just for the mother's FGC
status, yeah. That is an excellent comment, and thank you, Mauna, for that.
You maintain all your observation, but it will tell you something interesting.
Yes, thank you so much. That's a really great comment. So add mother FGC status. Thank you. Okay, so that's a robustness analysis that I would do to include that in maybe a next presentation. So we also see that having FGC increases the probability of experiencing a pregnancy termination throughout life. We also see the same thing for C-section. It increases the probability of having to give birth through C-sections for mother. So now what about the education part? So the extensive margin will look at the decision of whether a girl goes to school or not. And the intensive will look at how many years she has spent in school. So let's look at some of the results. So the first one, you see that, okay, FGC actually decreases the probability of going to school by 5% percentage points in the most restrictive model. And then for the decision for the years of school that for the years that a girl spent in school, it also affect that years negatively by 9.1 percentage points. And those are around like 20 to 18% decrease from the baseline result. So as we can see, there is a loss in terms of educational attainment when a girl is cut. And how can we go in later to explain that. So now I'm gonna bring in the drought proxy. So where I look at the interaction between drought, the law, and Senegal. So as I explained earlier, weather conditions are exogenous events that impact economic productivity. So this is another level of exogeneity that I'm adding to the model just to get a more precise estimate. And I'm gonna see how drought affects the probability of being cut. And I'm gonna show you this table. I'm gonna show you in the first line the effect of the drought in Senegal, Senegal and post and drought. And then I'm gonna show you in the last for the last row the interaction for those three. I don't know. Okay, this is good. So as you can see from the first results, it shows that when family experience drought, they are more likely to cut the daughter. And it's a 2.8 percentage points increase in the probability of cutting the daughter. So Senegal post is still decreasing, showing that the law has in fact decreasing the prevalence of FGC. But look at something interesting when we put in drought and post. So when we put post and drought, we see that drought is actually capturing null. It's just canceling the effect of the law. So drought is, as a matter of fact, parents doesn't care about the law when they experience drought. They just decide to cut the daughter.
You mean like your income gap make up like overpower following the law, right?
Yes. So parents don't even care about the law. They just, and some might be like, okay, there is drought. It affects implementation.
Cut all the girl in the house.
It affects implementation, but maybe that's the case, or maybe just parents are just so concerned by making up the income lost that they decide to cut the daughter. And as you can see, even if we, so to talk about the effect of drought, the law in Senegal, we need to add up all those coefficients. And when we do that, we still observe a decrease about, I think it's, I don't remember the exact number, but we still observe a decrease.
Why is the interaction, the triple interaction just explode the effect?
The which one?
The Senegal post and drought is like, you see the magnitude of the effect just implode from the previous line
The draft effect is so huge, man.
Yes. And then here's the thing. If you want to interpret the coefficient, you're not looking at that coefficient only. You are looking at a sum. You need to use
yes, I do understand. But I'm just, if you stick them single line.
Yes. So drought is actually capturing a lot of willingness or decision for parents or household to cut the daughter. So parents just don't care about the drought when the law is in place. They're like, we don't care about the law.
Which drought are you using? Are you using the drought of the previous year?
Thank you. That's it. I had that comment too. I'm gonna use
are you using that the historical drought? Like, because if a region is renowned as a drought region, people may have cultivated that behavior of relying on cutting their girls and selling them on the marriage market for a long time.
Yes.
So even if there is the law, they continue doing so.
Yes.
So which drought are you using?
So I'm using the drought in the year a girl was cut. But it's a good point to use lag of the drought but the things that I've done to characterize drought, I'm looking at the long, that's why I have a long distribution. I have since 1950, even back before my data, like 1950 to 2017, to capture like a long range of rainfall realization. So I'm not just, and what I did too, I look not only at my grid, but I look also at like grids that are around to really make sure that I'm characterizing drought events. I'm not gonna use like a small change in drought to be like, okay, this is a drought event. There are indexes in the literature and that do that, but those indexes might just like use a small variation to be like, oh, this is a drought event. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at all those data and pull them together and say like, okay, I'm really capturing a drought event here.
Okay, guys, this is really interesting research. But I have to jump. I have a meeting with
okay, I'm gonna conclude. Yeah, okay.
No, you don't have to conclude. You can stay with other friends as long as you want. So I have to jump, but I made you the co-host, and then I make my wife the co-host too. So you guys can even if I leave, it will not do any.
Okay. Thank you so much, Simplice. Thank you for your comments. Really appreciate it.
Me too. I have to leave.
Okay, thank you so much, Wilfried, for showing up.
It's a good project. It's a good project. Yeah. So I have to take the bus like in a few minutes. So sorry about that.
Thank you so much for showing up.
You can continue with others.
Okay. I really appreciate you showing up. Thank you so much.
Okay. See you.
See you. I took forever to finish this thing. I'm sorry. So the next thing is we saw a drought effect, right? So you should expect me to see what happened on the marriage market because I'm talking about drought. I'm saying all of these things about drought, but what happened on the marriage market? Are we observing something on the marriage market happening? So I'm gonna estimate these two equations where I'm gonna look at age at first union or cohabitation, and I'm gonna look at age at first child. Those two are really correlated because in Africa, you know that when somebody's married, like really after they have a child, but we're gonna see the result. So the first result shows the age at first, and I did this also by looking at the hazard. So as you can observe here with my most restricted model, being cut increases the hazard of being married early by 0.2 percentage point. And I just added this table yesterday, but I can look at it's a huge decrease when you look at the baseline mean and you take the difference with you look at the percentage increase from the baseline. And the result is pretty much similar for age at first child, showing that there is something going on in the marriage market. Like, as I said, cut girls are more preferred on the marriage market because parents have that mechanism from the drought or from income shock that they want to compensate for. So the next result that I'm going to show you is just the old ratio, showing you what are the most vulnerable girls that are more likely to experience cutting. And you can see it's mostly for early ages girls that are really, really at risk of being cut from age 0 through 5, maybe. And then we have like some, we observe like a big decrease for later girls, later ages. I'm gonna show you some heterogeneity in terms of area of residence and wealth. So I'm gonna look at rural, urban, and I'm gonna look at the distribution of wealth, poorest, middle, and richest. So the equation that the line that we are interested in is the second line, and it shows that the impact of the law in rural and urban are pretty much similar, but I'm not saying here that the effect is the same. I'm not saying that the magnitude is the same, because they both start at different level, right? Like when you look at the prevalence of FTC in rural area and urban area, they are not the same. But the coefficient, it's the implication, it's quite like pretty much the same, even though they start at different level. For wealth distribution, we see that the law has mostly impacted the richest and the middle has observed like a decrease in the probability of cut or the hazard of being cut. But the poorest, they, as I said, this supports my income shock result, right? The poorest, they just
This makes sense.
Yes, the poorest are just like more motivated. They just want more money, so they are likely to engage in the practice. So I did some sensitivity analysis. I use a placebo where I look at like different years before the enactment of the law. I look at 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998. I don't see any effects. I look at two different samples. I look at like boys without sisters, because I'm trying to avoid like spillover effects. And I also look at men, and I don't see any effects here too.
Could you come again on the spillover issue that you have mentioned?
So if I use boys with sisters, we could see some spillover effects, right? If my sister was cut, that could somehow affect a boys.
How?
And there might be a mechanism, right? If my sister was...
this is what I want to understand, because I don't really see how it could be a fixed. Spillover there. I'm not.
If my sister was cut, that could impact my decision to go to school, for instance. If my sister was cut and I know that she's not going to school, maybe now my parents are going to be like, okay, we have more resources to send you to school, for instance.
So are you comparing boys with sisters who were cut to boys without sister at all, or what?
So I'm using a sample of boys without sisters. That's just my sample. There is no girls there.
Okay, so there is no girl, there is no cut.
There is no girls, there is no cut. But I randomly assign like cutting to them just to see if they're gonna be some effects.
I see what you see.
You see what I mean? And then I'm doing the same for men. Like I took a sample of men and I just randomly assigned them cutting to see if I'm gonna observe some effects.
And for the years, like you assume, for example, that the law was enacted in 95.
Yes, and then I used a sample before 1999.
Yeah.
And then I did the same for the other years.
But I mean, what you are doing is not, to see if there is any spillover.
I'm not seeing that if there is a spillover. I'm seeing if the law has had an effect for men without boys. And I just mentioned that I'm using boys without sisters to avoid any spillover effect. Okay. And then I used some control for potential policies that was adopted around that time, because there are maybe some other things that might be happening too. And there is a big thing about misreporting. And there are evidences that...
sorry, how do you control it for that?
For what?
For potential policy around the...
So I just look at the years of those adoptions and I included those dummies in the model.
I see.
You see?
Yeah.
Okay. So misreporting, right? Misreporting, there are a lot of debate about that, but there are evidence in showing that there is no misreporting. And I'm gonna do some analysis on that too, just to see if there is no misreporting going on. But this Novak 2020, who is on my committee, she has done a work showing that there is actually not, it's really small effects of misreporting, but it's not going to largely impact the result that we're observing here. I also use region year of fixed effect control for trend, capturing the tendency to underreport. So that's one way also to capture misreporting. So conclusion, we saw that the law has somewhat negatively impacted the prevalence of FGC. It's about an 18% reduction in the probability of being cut. And I found that FGC affect negatively women's health and girls' health. It also affects the decision to attend school. But however, the combined effect of the drought and the law suggests that households are responsive to drought event when they face an income loss. So some discussion, some policy. So I propose like legislation that should be accompanied by plan for implementation, enforcement, and monitoring. I also propose like to provide a sort of a compensation for those low household income with girls at an early age to discourage a vast majority of them to cut their daughter or the girl. And I also provide an incentive-based FGC cessation to women who give birth to girls with an educational component and follow-up package for the newborn. So that's basically what I have today. And yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for your comments. And I don't know if you have more questions.
Yeah, guys, I think this is a great topic. It's something that is very common. Even in Benin, it happens, but nobody talks about it. So I feel like it's a great project. Yeah. Now coming back to Mali, you could also, in the sensitivity analysis, you could also take another country and rerun. It's basically the same codes, but you just rerun everything to see if the effect is changing or.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, that's true. But the long-term objective is like, so as my director was saying, is like one time you have to pull in all the countries and try to do maybe like a staggered difference to see what would be happening here. Yeah. But it's just like, I tried that. So I started the project using every country. And then one thing that I faced before I even talked to Pierre, who's told me not to use every country because people think about Africa as like one country. And when you do that, you will miss a lot of cultural aspects. It's like the age at cutting, which is a main variable, are not even listed for some countries. Or I don't have enough people in the distribution of both sides of the event. So that was like one of the main step back that I faced. But they're like, I mean, I did like an extra work where I have to program for the distributions and the likelihood for function for every girls, because for some girls, I didn't say this, it was gonna take forever, but for some girls, I only know that they were caught during infancy, and for other girls, I know that they were caught at some point, but I don't know the age.
Okay.
So I have to use the likelihood. Then to compute the likelihood of those daughters and to do that extra step. So I can do something like that too, but it's just gonna take forever because some of my estimates take days to run.
Yeah. And it's true that most people here, they just think of Africa like.
Yes, it's because you guys know about the things that you were like, when I talk about it, like, they just want to see difference, and they want to see event study. They want to see.
Yeah, they did not know really the context. They want to talk about the methodology, but actually, the context really matter here, right? But so I agree. I think that let me also comment. I mean, you did a great job, guys. To be honest, to be honest, I learned a lot.
Thank you, guys. Your comments are really. I mean, there are. I can stop recording now, right? Yeah, your comments are really important, and I wanted to present to you guys because